I recently played at German Nationals with Dinomorphia. Here's my decklist and how I performed. The decklist is pretty standard with some spicy cards. On 3 Theresia, 2 D+, this is completely normal. 3 Prosp, 2 Duality. 2 or 3 Duality is kind of a preference, but I like to play 2 because it clashes with Typhon, it clashes with follow-up play that you want to do, and it's not as good as Prosp. 3 Frenzy, 3 Realm, 2 Alarm. This is pretty standard as well. You could play 1, but most people play 2. 3 Intact. Then I'm on the Soul of the Supreme King package. I'm on 3 Soul of the Supreme King. 1 normal Zark, 1 Odd Eyes Arcgrave Dragon that you can summon over the Zark, 1 Brave Eyes Pendulum Dragon, and 1 Crystal Clearwing Synchro Dragon. Then 2 Trap Trick. I don't like Trap Trick. That's why I was playing 2 Wannabe. This is kind of one of the spicy cards. The decklist is heavily inspired by Erik Hoffmann's decklist, that recently topped at Austrian Nationals. And he played 3 Ferret Flames, 3 Trap Trick, and I chose to instead play 2-2-2 because Wannabe can grab you anything that's not a normal trap as well. She's really good, but she clashes with Shifter, and if your opponent ends on Omni Negate versus like Voiceless Voice and you go second, then this isn't crazy as well. Or if your opponent just summons an Apo if you play versus Snake Eye. Then another spice card is the one of Fossil Deck that I'm playing. You really want to see the Theresia, and Fossil Deck really helps with that. For the rest of the traps, I'm playing 1 Rivalry because this is good going first and second. 3 Judgment, this isn't as good if you go second. 3 Strike, this is great because it can protect you from an Ash on either one of the fusion traps. It can protect you from any big boss monster your opponent summons on field if you go second. And I'm on 2 Iron Thunder. This is a great card as well. Your opponent can play around the Iron Thunder though, because this destroys all cards in the negated cards column. So if you just play versus Dinomorphia and you place all of your cards in the Rex term column, it's really hard for the Dinomorphia player to not get their own Rex term destroyed with an Iron Thunder. In the extra deck, I'm playing 3 Rex term, 3 Kentrigina, 1 Stealth Bergia. You don't have to play that many. You could play 2 Kentrigina. Stealth Bergia is not mandatory as well. I never summoned him out, but he's kind of there to just not get called by it on the Kentrigina in some lines. It's pretty weird. You don't have to play it if you don't want to. Then for the Xyz, I'm on 1 Lagia. This is great if you can alert, summon back 2, and then make a Lagia on the next turn, because this can negate summons. It can come up really handy versus some decks that this deck struggles against. 1 Castell, because this is neat versus any boss monster that can't be destroyed by card effects. 1 Exeter Knight, I never summoned this, but in theory it's great. And 1 Typhon. Typhon is very good if you want to go second and you didn't draw that many board breakers. In the side deck, I'm playing 3 Sphere Mode. This is insane versus Snake Eye, and it's great versus many other decks too. This really performed versus Chimera. It really didn't perform versus Voiceless Voice because they can just use this as a tribute for another ritual summoned if they have another Skull Guardian in hand. Then 3 D-Shifter, this came in clutch whenever I drew it. 1 Duster, 2 Lightning Storms, this also was very good. It's needed in matchups like U-Bell, where you have to get rid of the back row before you can really play. Then in case we go first, I'm on an additional Iron Thunder and a Sonic. Sonic is the searchable spell Trap Negate that you could search with Theresia. It's pretty good, but it has to destroy a Dinomorphia monster you control, which is a high cost. Then I'm on 3 Mind Drain in the side. In theory, this is a better Solemn Strike if you go first, because this can negate all monster effects in the hand, or rather it says neither player can activate monster effects in the hand. This is insane versus decks that play like 15-20 hand traps, like Marin says, for example. It's also good against some cards in the meta. It hits Ash, it hits It hits, oh my god, I forgot the name of the voice monster in hand that you can send to the graveyard to then dump a ritual spell. It's decent-ish if you want to main deck this. I wouldn't recommend it though. And finally, one anti-spell. The great thing is that you can wannabe into anti-spell, but you have to remember that wannabe sends the card at the end of the next turn. I at one point had a situation where my opponent and I weren't 100% sure, or we didn't agree rather, if the card was set with wannabe or not, and I had an anti-spell fragrance on my side of the field and drew into the duster. So I said, oh, this shouldn't be on field anymore, and he said, oh well, it's still on field, I don't know if you set it with a wannabe or not. So that's always a weird situation you can be in. So like place a counter on the card or something. My matchups were pretty bad, but I still performed well, I think. First round I played versus Voiceless Voice. I beat him 2-1, even though I lost the die roll. All in all, I won a single die roll. Second round I played versus Chimera, a really bad matchup for this deck because you can't really out monsters that can't be destroyed by battle. Chaos Angel is a big problem for the deck. And yeah, he transaction rollbacked me with the Mayakashi trap in game 3, so I couldn't really do much. Then round 3 I played versus Marincess, again lost the die roll, third lost die roll so far, and I 2-0'd him, even though I lost the die roll. Very nice round, but yeah, he can't really do much because they have a negate, but the negate is only on my turn, and because I just set 5 pass, they don't really have a negate. I can negate the summons of the linked monsters. It's a great matchup for this deck. Then versus Salamangreat I got 1-2'd because Salamangreat has a really good matchup versus this deck, because Mirage Stelio can bounce the Rex term. Princess is always kind of a problem. Yeah, it's not a great matchup, but I did misplay at some points. Like, you should always negate the summon of the monster that was link summoned with the Mirage Stelio, or negate the summon of the Mirage Stelio, because then it's like not properly summoned and they can't reborn it and they have to shuffle it back. But that's hindsight 2020 pretty much. Then I lost against Runic stun, because I lost the die roll, and he with one single golden droplet banished all of my Teresias, and I just thought, well, my fusions need 2 different Dinomorphia names, and I only have 2 Dinomorphia names, and now one of my names is banished, so I can't play. Yup. Then I played versus Stardust Adventure, Sinful Spoil Pile-ish. Game 1 he bricked and only ended on Dawn Dragster plus Ash. And I still beat him, luckily, in game 1. Game 2 I got like wombo comboed, calamity locked, whatever, couldn't do anything. In game 3 it's Dinomorphia when they go first, so he couldn't do anything as well. Then I played versus Snake Eyes. Snake Eyes is a great matchup for this deck. I beat him 1-2, again lost the die roll. Game 1 I could have won, I gotta be honest. Game 2 I had to concede because I was running low on time, and this deck is horrible if it goes into time, obviously. So I had to surrender game 2, even though I could have won that one as well, and then beat him in game 3, because it's just easier if you go first, obviously. After I beat this Snake Eyes player, I was 3-3 or 4-3. I'm checking right now. I was 4-3 at that point. That was already my worst tournament ever at that point, because I never had such a bad score. And then I played versus Sky Striker, the first time where I actually thought I was playing versus Tenpai, because he made me go first, and then it was Sky Striker, and I was really not prepared for him main decking 3 Raigekis, 3 Lightning Storms, just everything that kills Rexstorm pretty much. Game 2 I was able to shifter him. That stopped him for like 1 turn, but that's about it. The best thing you can do versus Sky Striker is either have skill drain on the side, or not do anything until you have a setup that really can't be broken. A great thing you can do also is like rivalry them at the right points, or like when they Hornet drones you can rivalry them, when they normal rows you can rivalry them, but that's pretty much the only points when they can be stopped with rivalry. Then I played versus Runic Generator. Runic Generator was an interesting match because we talked too long about generator because I'm a generator enthusiast as well, and we were running very low on time, but I luckily managed to win that round with like 10 seconds left on the clock. It was a blast because game 1 he lost because he didn't know what I was doing and he didn't know how to play versus the deck. Game 2 he had a great hand, but he didn't go for the hand loop combo. He instead just passed on Jormungandr Ha. I was able to bait the Ha with like a rivalry and then strike the Ha, but it still was too much. And then game 3 I just outgrinded him again. In the next round, which was actually the last round for day 1, 10th round, I was at that point 5-4 and I was really hoping to go positive out of day 1. I played versus Yugioh. Yugioh is not a great matchup for this deck, but luckily you have Brave Ice Pendulum Dragon. This very funny card says negate the activated effects of monsters with 0 attack. This means that you negate pretty much every single hand trap and you negate all Yugioh monsters. Very nice. Because of this I won game 2. Game 1 I got a bit cocky and went for a Ferret Flames too early, but wasn't able to make him shuffle all of his monsters back into the deck. One of the plays you can do versus Yugioh is that you use Rex Term to make the Yugioh monsters gain attack and have the attack be your current life points. Then you use Ferret Flames to shuffle back their monsters, which would leave them on only one monster because they have to shuffle back until the monsters they have left on field are equal or less attack combined than your life points. And then you chain something that halves your life points again, like an alert, for example. But he was able to somehow prevent me from activating an alert, I think. Like he removed the targets from my graveyard so I couldn't alert anymore. And he had still one Yugioh monster on his side of the field and I had to attack into the Yugioh monster, so I lost. Game 2 he got to witness the power of Brave Ice Pendulum Dragon, and game 3 I think he might have stalled, but then I told him, oh man, no one has stalled against me so far this tournament and I'm so glad that you're not stalling against me as well. You're such a nice and kind person. And then he gave me the win with like 5 seconds left on the clock. Like he could have stalled me for time, but luckily he saw that he didn't have an out to anything I had on board. Like I had like 3 Judgment Set, Rex Term and an Iron Thunder or something, like really an unbeatable board, unless you draw exactly Kaiju or something. But yeah, because of that I finished 6-4 on day 1. I went into day 2 hyped because there was still a chance that I was able to get top 128 or something. In round 11 I played versus Runic again. This time it was Runic Sprite for hire. I lost the die roll again. I got a note, I won the die roll versus Yugioh. Yugioh was the one die roll that I actually won. So round 11 I play versus Runic Sprite for hire. Lost the die roll again, really bad position, and then I see somebody come over to my table and it's actually Erik Hoffmann, who recently topped Austrian Nationals with Dinomorphia and who I had quite much inspiration for the decklist from. We looked each other in the eyes and I was just like, you like what you're seeing? And he was like, oh yeah, you got a cool deck over there. How's it going? And I was like, oh, I'm X4 right now, so not great. And he was like, maybe you can still top. And then I was like, it's not going too well. And he was like, oh, from what I've been seeing on your board, you might still have a chance. So I might have not seen a line at one point. I sadly lost that game 0-2 versus Runic Sprite for hire. It's a bad matchup, I'll be honest. And that was the time where I had the anti-spell set with the wannabe on my side of the field as well. And always put like a counter on the anti-spell or any card that you set with the wannabe. It's always tricky if you set continuous stuff because you just don't expect to keep the card for so long. Most of the time you're just gonna set like a frenzy or something and use the frenzy on the next turn. But wannabe can set something like anti-spell. And it was a weird situation. I was going first, game 2, had a set anti-spell with Wannabe. He just set 5 runic spells and passed. I draw Harpy's Feather Duster for turn, and I'm like, oh, this anti-spell is supposed to be in the graveyard. And he's like, oh, I don't know. Should it be in the graveyard? What even is a graveyard? Pretty much to that extent. So I lost that game as well, and afterwards he told me, oh, I'm just gonna drop because I just wanted to play for like 30 minutes until side events start. And I was like, oh man, really? He was like, yeah, but I gotta go. And I talked to him and was like, yeah, oh man, you're still X form. If you win one more round, you can maybe get 128 as your top. And he then just dropped for like no reason. So in round 12, I played versus another not great matchup. I played versus Centurion Melodius. Centurion Melodius was a weird matchup. Game 1, he negated most of my important stuff, except for a Soul of the Supreme King. And then I Soul of the Supreme King into a Zarg, and he couldn't beat over the Zarg because it's on 4000 defense and attack. Then he was like, yeah, it returns to the extra deck on the next end phase. Proceeds to make Archray Dragon. And then I had like a dumb misplay because he was going for the Red Rising Dragon or something, like the Red Archfiend Synchro monster that's like, if your opponent declares an attack or activates a monster effect on the field, you can banish all cards your opponent controls. Then I played into that monster because I still had too many life points actually on my life point counter, and I couldn't put him under a Rex turn, so he was able to banish all my cards. I lost the game. Game 2 I won because it's Dinomorphia going first, and game 3 he kind of bricked on his Melodius package, I gotta say. Like, he passed on one of the Melodius fusions, the one that's a DD Crow for 3, and that doesn't do much against me. And because I had stuff like Iron Thunder as well, I can put Iron Thunder in the problematic columns and then pretty much use this as a board breaker if I want to. Yeah, all in all, I finished 7-5. I could have probably finished 8-4 at the very least, maybe 9-3. Dinomorphia is a deck that has some very, very good matchup this format. It's decent versus Yubel, it's very good versus Tempire Dragon, it's very decent versus Snake, I want to say, but it depends on what variant they are playing. Like, if you play versus the hand loop stuff, then it's not as good. But if you just play versus Apo, 1 spell negate plus Flamburst, then that's pretty much a buy round. Like, they just build their board to get sphere moded, they build their board to get de-shifted, and yeah, it's not a great matchup for them. They can pretty much just hope to make Underworld Goddess, and that's it. The biggest problem for this deck is probably Droplet and Tactics Talents. Super Poly isn't a problem anymore because no one runs it. Oh, Druis Worm also. Druis Worm and Princess are big problems for the deck, but there are outs to that. All in all, I was pretty happy with the deck list. With some exceptions. I don't own an SP, so if you own an SP, you should play a Dugares instead of the Exeter Knight, and an SP instead of one of the Kentraginas, because then you can alert, summon back 2 from the graveyard, trigger Teresia, then you can do Garrus on the next turn, summon back a Teresia, trigger Teresia again, then you can make an SP, and this means that an alert can give you 2 sets, 2 cents, 4 monsters on board, and an SP that you link this stuff into, so pretty much you only are left with an SP on board, but it's still great. Like, you got an SP with an extra deck monster as material, 2 sets, 2 cents. What else can you want? Eric Hoffman actually had some more cards in his deck that I should have net decked. It was playing a Brood. You notice that there's not a single Dinomorphia Brood in either the main or the side. That's kind of a problem versus some matchups. It's very helpful versus Chimera. It's very helpful versus Yubel. It's very helpful versus just some generic rogue decks. So Brood in the side at 1 would be nice. Another thing that I realized is Called By in the side is kind of mandatory, just because it hits Bruise Worm, it hits Princess, it hits Mirage Stelio. It's very, very good, because like I'm not scared of monster effects in the hands, because I'm like on Mind Drain, I'm on Solemn Strike, I'm on this guy that also says pretty much no hand traps can be activated. I can't be affected from stuff on the field, because you can't even activate it on the field. This is not like Skill Drain, it's like Mystic Mine. And yeah, I'm kind of scared of stuff that's activated in the graveyard, so Called By is very good to prevent that. That's pretty much all I gotta say. The only things that I can just add is Wannabe is not a bad card, but it does conflict with Shifter, so if you want to play Shifter main, don't play Wannabe. Shifter also conflicts with Soul of the Supreme King though, but everyone is on this, so Shifter main is probably not a nice idea, even though it's a great card. Rivalry main is mandatory in my opinion. Fossil Dick is decent, like it definitely came up. I also like Wannabe just because this thins the deck, because if you go second, you can Wannabe, Excavate 5, then set like a trap and put the other 4 cards to the bottom of the deck. Then you can Prosp, Excavate 6, then you can Duality, Excavate 3, so you excavate the top 14 cards of your deck and search for 3 cards. That's just crazy. Like, you don't shuffle after this, you don't shuffle after this, and then you only shuffle after this. It's really nutty. Yeah, 2 Duality is pretty much mandatory in my opinion as well. I thought about playing maybe Skill Drain on the side too, because it's just good versus non-activated monster effects, like stuff that can attack directly, like the, oh man, I forgot what Sky Striker monster it was, but Sky Striker monsters pretty much like, swing for 15, and if you swing for 15 once, I'm dead, unless I get like something in the graveyard that I can use to prevent damage. Big shoutouts to all of my friends from my locals that drove with me to the German Nationals. Big shoutouts to my friends from, not even my locals, just some of my local friends, not my local friends, that drove with me to the Nationals. Shout out to everyone who lent me cards for this deck, because my sphere modes were very banned and in Italian, so I had to grab some new sphere modes, and I had opponents who kind of scratched on my cards to maybe give me game losses or something. Like, there's very clearly fingernail imprints in this, and I got them after round 2 when I played against the Chimera player. These are brand new sleeves that I bought at the event, and then I have very obvious fingernail scratches on like one of my cards. These are not my scratches. This is like probably his insurance if he had lost the game or something. Maybe. Anyway, I hope you like Dinomorphia as much as I do. I hope you can maybe just copy the decklist. I gotta be honest. Maybe just copy the decklist with the few suggestions I had. Maybe just try out Erich Hoffmann's decklist, because it's a very good decklist as well. I tried it as well. I shouldn't have changed some of the things, like not playing Called By on the side. But yeah, it's a great decklist, and if I can say anything about Dinomorphia, I'd say that it's a fun deck for you to play. It's always nice to be the underdog if you want to play a control deck in a combo meta. Dinomorphia is striving in a format where there's a ton of hand traps and not that many board breakers, and some board breakers don't really affect it much as well. Yeah, I hope you liked the video. Maybe subscribe, maybe don't, you don't have to. And I'll see you in the next video. Have a nice one.